City Council meeting of Wednesday, June 20th, 2018 at 7:30 p.m. Mrs. Arrington, Ms. Allen, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Mirsky, Mrs. Schaaf, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon. Please rise for a moment of silent meditation and Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of minutes from the meeting of June 6, 2018, and bills for payment on June 15th, 22nd, and 29th, 2018. Ms. Allen, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Mirsky, Mrs. Schaaf, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mrs. Arrington.
Are there any repository sales today?
Yes.
State your name and address.
My name is Kenneth Evans. I live at 516 East 9th Street. The property I'm interested in is located behind my residence. It's addressed at 518 East 9th, but you only can access it through the alley. It's a small piece of property. I'm not familiar with, this is my first time ever getting involved in repository sales. The property is blighted, and I came to City Hall to see about getting something done, and this is the vehicle they recommended. So I'm starting the process now. I've contacted a demolishing company, and they've given me an estimate to tear the building down and landscape it. It's only 40 by 60 feet. So that's what I intend to do with it.
Okay. Do anybody have any questions?
I'm sorry. Do you live by the property?
I live next door to the property. My property runs all the way to the alley. I have a barn. My residence in a yard, and there's a barn, and the property is located next to my barn. And
so you want to acquire it to become part of your property and maintain it?
Well, the property is blighted. I wanted to get rid of the blight, and I found out that this is the easiest way to do it.
Right.
And I will eventually attach it to my property.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll be in touch.
I sit out the side of my back porch or side porch. And
Name and address, please, sir.
Doug Marlowe, 1241 Buffalo Road.
I don't think this is for a repository sale. Is that?
No, okay. This is 1231.
Call that then.
Oh, 1231.
Yeah, we're doing repository sales right now,
That's
sir.
what I'm trying to do.
Oh, okay.
It's 1231. I gave my home address, but I'm trying to buy 1231 because I look out the side of my house and I see my nice couple of lots, and I always see this one, and I see the other guy's lot cleaned over there, and I just said, well, why don't you just buy it? And because there's some weeds, I don't know if they're weeds or flowers, but I call them flowers no matter what. They basically start on my property and go onto this property, and I wanted to put a fence around it. A small, maybe foot-high fence. And I figured the only way I could really do it would be buy the lot.
Did you go through the process with the county? Because I didn't receive any information on that.
I went to the courthouse.
The county courthouse?
Yeah. So
okay.
I paid the $250. I got the check now.
Okay. I'm going to need a copy of your ID, and then we'll send it up to Economic and Community Development. I'm sorry to interrupt. When they're all done with you.
Okay.
Okay.
Do anyone have any questions? Okay, we'll be in touch with you at a later date. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to have to get his information. Okay. Are you here for a repository?
Tim Musgrave, 1626 Chestnut. It was just an empty property, empty lot that borders my garage that I'd like to get.
What are your plans for the property, sir?
Just to maintain it, keep mowing it, maybe put a fence up.
Okay. Are there any more questions from council?
So you just want to fence it in, make it a yard, it's adjacent to your property?
Right.
Okay, and just expand your yard with it?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll be in touch. Are there any more repository sales? Are there any more repository sales? Last call for repository sales. That takes us to citizens to be heard.
My name is Freda Tepfer. I live at 1738 West 23rd Street. I have a few things. I was at the Planning Commission meeting on Tuesday, and I made comments about the process that is set up for fulfilling positions on the County Planning Commission, where there are 3 names that are given by the city to the county for nomination. There is no process there's no spelled out process by which those nominations are made. The Planning Commission in Erie is appointed by the mayor, but there's no process by which that selection is made. So, yet again, we have a situation where there is not a good way for citizens who want to be involved to get involved. And I made that comment at the Planning Commission. A member of the mayor's, of the administrative staff, was there, and he said, you know, we have trouble getting people to volunteer to be on our boards and commissions and authorities. It's really hard to get people. And I said, well, gee, that's odd, because I've written letters to several members of council, several of you who are here, with my qualifications, which are considerable. And I have done the same at the county level. Nobody's ever contacted me about signing up for a vacancy. And then I posted that to Facebook. And a young person, under 40, who's been through the Jefferson Leadership Program, who has lots of experience with strategic planning and acquisition, and said this. Agreed. I would love to apply for positions if they were posted. I know many others as well. The excuse no one is interested is annoying. It's used all the time. Reality is they never really ask anyone. Thank you for keeping this issue in front of them every chance you get. We would like, a lot of us would like, not to be told to send letters to council members and say, these are who I am, and maybe someday one of them might appoint us, but to have an actual kind of a grid, a listing of things that are there or vacancies. I think Council Member Allen did some research about how this is done in some modern American cities. And for us to be able to self-nominate ourselves for your consideration and for the mayor's consideration. Right now, it's a very good old boys network, and I will say it's good old boys because in the Planning Commission, that's all it is white men. I hope that this is something that can evolve and improve because there's a lot of us of all ages who would like to be more involved and invested in our city. I also want to bring up a problem that I've been bringing to the city's attention since at least 2015, originally through Councilmember Mirsky, then Councilmember Brennan. Now I'm not sure who I'm supposed to work with. And I have been working with John Tushak, and John Tushak did secure an easement in order to put in a sidewalk at 12th and Green Garden. Sidewalk should have been built there as a result, should have been paid for by the developer because the dollar amount of the remodel would have triggered the ADA requirement to put in a sidewalk. However, that was overlooked by Public Works, and they acknowledged that. So it's been at least 3 years that John Tushek and the engineering department and the city have been aware of this. The city council passed an easement about a year ago. Had this been done before this property was sold again, then maybe a new easement wouldn't be necessary, although I would think the easement should stay with the property. I'm talking about the northeast corner of 12th and Green Garden. It would be nice for people in my neighborhood to be able to walk to the Arboretum and down to the Bayfront. There's really no safe, accessible way to proceed north from 12th because on the west side, there's no sidewalk part of the way. It's extremely dangerous. There's sidewalk halfway down the block. And on the west side, you have to go up a hill. So nobody with any kind of physical limitation can do that. So I really wish this could get moving. I don't know why it's been stuck for so long. And it does bring to mind that I have called a number of my council members and their voicemail boxes are full and they don't respond to emails. And I really think that if you want to be available to the city, that you should clear out your voicemail boxes and respond to your emails. That's why we're there. So I hope some of these, I will say the website looks a lot better. You can actually find some things, but it would be nice to find ways for people to be included in the governance of the city and not just everybody's friends. Thank you.
Good evening. Adam Trott, 531 West 6th, second floor. Several items I wanted to put before council. One is the opportunity zones. It was good news to hear that City Hall had filed with Governor Wolf zones and all of them were approved. The nature of those zones is to catalyze investment in areas that are struggling for investment, and particularly that have low-income census tracts. Although I'm glad every zone that was proposed was approved, but I'm at a loss to understand how the Bayfront is a low-income census tract and how it qualified as an opportunity zone. And so I'm curious about how that happened. Although I don't object to it, but it is an odd anomaly in the process. And then the other issue is that when the Erie Times described those zones, they really kind of discounted how much of the east side is actually in an opportunity zone. They mentioned the Savacchio Business Park, and they mentioned the property just west of Franklin Avenue from GE, which is the old GE appliance buildings. But they neglected to clarify there's actually a lot more of the east side than just that. And particularly the industrial regeneration area, at least the east side of that, in the East Avenue Viaduct area qualifies. So I'm not sure why they would have had that error in the article, but it was concerning seeing how often the Erie Times gets things incorrect. So I hope when you're continuing the comprehensive plan meetings that you make those areas you're in aware that they are an opportunity zone and they can go after corporate and private sector investment into infrastructure. That's a critical tool for them. And I really hope things take off with the Savacchio Business Park. That was a Horan project, and unfortunately he passed away, but he was a champion of Erie residents, and it would be great to see that business park take off like he always hoped it would. Another issue I wanted to just augment what Freda said about Green Garden. Green Garden is the west leg of what the Metropolitan Planning Organization calls the outer loop, the outer bike loop. And it's also the west leg of the outer loop is actually the Erie Urban Bike Trail that Bike Erie started advocating 4 years ago. So since it's now in the MPO plan to be an established bike route, and Green Garden is the only city-owned portion of the outer loop, I'm hoping that we can combine the momentum of a bike route along with the pedestrian concerns, and we can have a safe, viable link all the way from Grover Cleveland School at 38th and Green Garden all the way down to Frontier Park. I think that would be amazing and a very worthwhile objective. The grants, Bike Erie did meet with Leanne Parmenter, and we had some very good conversation on the $1 million grant for Safe Routes to School and the $250,000 grant for bike route markings. And I guess the lion's share is going to be on 6th Street, which is no longer a state route because the city traded that for the Bayfront Parkway state route. So the city owns that one, so they have that. And then I guess Leanne pointed out that she's well aware of that broken link where the rec trail breaks at the intermodal center and then picks up west of the putt-putt course. So they're going to invest in improving that, and that's a big help because everyone in Bike Erie, we all have seen people from out of town going that route and then just throwing their arms up like, okay, where do I go from here? So that's going to be a huge improvement, and I know the Scotts Harbor Place development is going to contribute to that broken link. Private-public sector cooperation, exactly what we like. A third item I just want to clarify, the civil rights lawsuit on the viaduct, the city's deadline is June 25th to file their response. The city missed their 21-day, but the judge is allowing them to June 25th, so we expect to see what you've got by June 25th. And thank you, everybody.
Hi, my name is Emma Gearing. I'm from 808 Cascade Street. I had a few documents. I don't know if it's possible if I can pass them out or if somebody can. There's only 7, so if you could just give them to council members. Before I begin, I wanted to thank Mayor Schember and Renee Lamis, I think I'm pronouncing her last name correctly, for addressing my community's concerns via email, and by Renee also coming to a lot of the community meetings that I've been trying to hold, and that have been held by other people as well. Just so you know, what I'm reading from is not the packet that you've received, so I'll try to be brief. It's only a 2-page document, but I feel like the things that I want to say will be more succinct if I just read them, and I won't miss anything. So here goes. Dear City Council members, my name is Emma Gearing, and for the past year I've been a resident of the city of Erie, though I've called Erie County my home for the past 4 years while I attended Edinboro University. When I graduated in the spring of 2017, I moved with my boyfriend to the west side of Erie. We found an affordable, albeit austere apartment in a working-class neighborhood. Both of us took jobs at nonprofits in the community through the government program AmeriCorps. I can't speak for my boyfriend, but I was eager to begin my AmeriCorps assignment. I hope to change things for the better, not only where I worked, but where I lived. I picked up litter around our neighborhood, I gardened and mowed for my neighbors, and I participated in community events and protests. It is with enormous regret that I must report that I feel my efforts, specifically in the community I live in, have been devoid not of passion, but of traction. I'd like to pivot to one of my most recent and alarming experiences in my neighborhood. On May 4th, 2018, I spent the night in the emergency room with a stranger who had been assaulted outside of a bar directly across from where I live. This bar is known as Bruce's. The woman I accompanied to the ER was only a few years older than me and was pummeled to the sidewalk by a male attacker. She received stitches. What's interesting to me is that I was the patron, or the person who had to call the police. It wasn't the bartenders or their patron. It was me. I was appalled and frankly scared. Living in my neighborhood has been a somewhat scary experience, primarily because of the bar across the street. I've called the police numerous times for disturbances, public urination, and fighting. I began to suspect that other members of my neighborhood might feel the same way, so I created a Facebook page called Bayfront Neighborhood Bar Watch, made brochures. Sorry, I lost my spot. and went around to houses in a 1-mile radius to see if they would sign a petition to declare Bruce's a nuisance bar, which I came to learn that getting a bar declared a nuisance bar is an incredibly hard feat. There are currently 42, it's actually 60 now, but when I wrote this, there were 42 neighbors who have signed on to the petition for the rightful designation of Bruce's as a nuisance bar, citing its outstanding record of playing host to disreputable and outright dangerous activity, which jeopardizes both the quality of life and safety of the surrounding neighborhood. From the year 2000 to present, there have been 59 recorded police calls to the bar. Surprisingly, my experience, the neighbors' signatures, and the record were not enough to get anyone to take my complaint seriously. Lieutenant Green of the Erie Police Department told me I was, quote, better off moving out of the neighborhood, end quote, and referenced a nebulous meeting that might occur between the EPD and the owner, none of which community members would be allowed to attend. Lieutenant Green is right in some regards. I can move out of the neighborhood, but what I think Lieutenant Green and a lot of public officials fail to understand is that many people cannot. Many people own homes in this neighborhood, have built equity and spent their personal savings upkeeping these homes. Many people rent in this neighborhood because the massive homes of Erie's Victorian era have been converted into affordable duplexes. What's most important, though, is that people should not have to move because of undesirable businesses that not only make the neighborhood unsafe, but also depreciate the housing value by allowing their patrons to litter, fight, urinate, and otherwise cause distress in the surrounding area. Had I the inclination that Bruce's Bar was capable of good faith accommodations, I would be less involved with advocating for something to be done about this bar. But the owner continues to leave his business at nightfall and return to his Waterford home. As one former employee informed me, he lectures his employees not to call the police when unsavory things happen outside of the establishment. While I was petitioning my neighborhood for signatures, I came across a neighbor who told me that when trash from the bar blew into her yard, she refused to move it, instead letting it blow into the next gust of wind into somebody else's yard because, quote, it's not her problem, end quote. I can't help but find this apathy intrinsic to the mentality of some of Erie's residents. There is a pervasive assumption that the unfortunate things that happen around us are beyond our control when really they are not. My neighbors are tied down with kids, jobs, addiction, and pleasurable activities that make petitioning for change in better neighborhoods a small priority. But I think it's important not to litter, and I think it's even more important to be willing to pick up another person's trash, to lead by example, if you know what I'm saying. So my hope, council members, is that you will at least hear me, that you will listen to me because I am one of those coveted millennials with a degree that you hope to move into market rate high-rise in the newly gentrified downtown Erie. I won't be in Erie much longer, a month to be exact. I'll be moving to Vermont for graduate studies. I don't know a lot about city planning, revitalization, or development, but I do know what I experienced and what my neighbors have been experiencing, and I do know that the reception or lack thereof of our experience has left me with a negative impression of the city, which I believe is reflected at large in the city's population decline. To conclude, though I expect little to come of my spiel today, I do hope I've imparted a young resident's perspective. I would be remiss not to mention that the culture of the bar and its patrons does not exist in a chasm, but are rather the results of a moral decay brought about by under- and unemployment, addiction, unaddressed mental health issues, and a citywide over-reliance on personal ingenuity and private wealth to solve the problems of urban stagnation. I feel that to properly address these issues, you must first dissolve environments where these socioeconomic ills fester, and that will indubitably require a commitment to working-class, low-income neighborhoods and the people who reside within them. Thank you for your time.
Madam President, Ian Murray, 624 West 7th Street. I first want to make a comment. Having been involved in nuisance bars my whole life, Bruce's Bar is certainly not one. And Lieutenant Green, who does a very good job, is very well aware of the number of actual calls that he may have received. In any event, I go to Bruce's at least 4 times a week. I'm there in the evening. I eat lunch there. We've had fundraisers there for a state rep race, for a DJ race, and other races. I'm there at night, almost. It's my corner bar. I'm there all the time. Never once have I been there when any police came, and I know about that fight that happened that she attested to, In the circumstances of that, when you hear them, if you hear them without hearsay, you'll understand that it was nothing to do with Bruce's or Bruce, the owner. Having been there at Mentley's and then Wagner's and now Bruce's, Bruce has cleaned up the whole place, new floor, new bathrooms, new walls. He's provided an environment for people that cannot afford to go to the clubs, certainly can't afford to go to the bars on State Street. We see in this town a diminishing number of the old corner bars that served the clients and people that can live there and afford to be there. Bruce's is one of them. I'm proud to be a patron of Bruce's. I've seen doctors in there. I've seen lawyers in there. I've seen judges in there. And I've seen the other side too. Vietnam vets who are down on their luck. It's the one place they can go when they get their VA check to socialize and enjoy themselves. And I watch the karaoke there at night. And I see the people that enjoy that karaoke. There's not another place they're going to have that enjoyment. They're not going to be accepted. Now, I did agree with the last few things that were said by the young lady about the challenges we have, having served on City Council and been the chair of the Human Relations Commission of the City of Erie, the challenges we have as a city to uplift the city. So I would just say this. It's a biracial bar. It's people from all walks of life. Bruce is a responsible owner. It has no business being considered a nuisance bar under any circumstance. I've met with Bruce. We're willing to talk. I'm not his lawyer. I'm just a patron and friend. I said, we'll meet with Lieutenant Green. We'll meet with neighbors. We'll meet whoever we want. But it's a bar that serves lunch. I had lunch there today. I've never seen the police there. So in any event, I'm here to speak as a citizen, as a homeowner, and as a person who frequents there, enjoys the company of all the different people there, and have never, ever once experienced any police contact there, or observed a fight inside the bar, or seen any harassment of female patrons of any type in there. The people in there are bonded together. Everyone that goes there, we all know each other. We all see each other. And we like each other. And we support each other. So I just want to share that with you. Nice seeing you, Mel.
Mr. Mayor, council members, my name is Bruce Hoffman. I own the bar at 1002 West 8th, and I thank you for allowing me to speak to you for a few brief moments. Before I begin, Ms. Geerling's quite eloquent presentation just a moment ago contained several falsities that I'd like to very briefly address. The woman that she alleges was attacked got involved in an apparent fight between her boyfriend and another man, jumped on the other man's back. The other man turned around, knocked her off, and she fell and hit her head on the sidewalk. I don't know if that's occurred. That means
excuse me. You had your turn to speak. Now it's his turn. Thank you.
I would like to also address the fact that she has somehow come up with this concoction that I've told my employees not to call the police. Yet we have the police have been called to my bar apparently 59 times. I would like to suggest that many of those were people from my establishment, my bartenders, or myself calling the police. I called 911 today at 1 o'clock for some people walking up the street that fell down and were on drugs. I'd like to mention also that I purchased that bar in November of 2013. When I took that bar over, it had been closed for 2 weeks because it was mismanaged. It's been in the corner for over 50 years. Since I purchased it in November of 2013, I have worked 1,667 consecutive days. I have missed 4 days in that time, 3 because my wife tricked me into hernia surgery, excuse me, and once to watch my daughter graduate from law school. The first year, I worked open till close, 370 days in a row, without a day off, without an hour off, so I could learn my business, learn my clientele, get rid of the problem clientele, and make that into the business that it is. I put everything I owned financially into that bar, and I'm not going to allow somebody to come in and cause trouble in my bar and lose my bar because people are misbehaving. I want you to know that I have worked with the neighbors in the 4.5 years that I've been there. The neighbors complained to me about the blighted building next door to me. I did some creative financing with the owner, and I purchased the building. I've put over $20,000 into that building. It now has flowers out front, new stairs, new railings, new windows, new roof, new doors. I've had the neighbors complain to me that I had a dumpster that was in the middle of the sidewalk because of where my bar is, that the garbage blows out of. I pay more, but I've removed the dumpster and put in 5 garbage cans with lids that the neighbors don't use anymore, and now the garbage doesn't blow over. I pick up trash daily, and I am getting old now, and I'm paying people to pick up the trash around my neighborhood on a daily basis. I've had neighbors come by walking their dogs, pushing their children on strollers. My sidewalks were all broken up in front of Bruce's, as well as the house I purchased next door. I've had all the sidewalks replaced. I've had neighbors come by and tell me that late at night they're afraid to walk by my premises because there's a driveway beside it on one side and an alley behind it on the other, and it's dark there. I've paid to put in flood lighting that stays on all night long. I've worked with the Erie Police Department and the Justice of the Peace. We've locked up 3 drug dealers on my watch that I've helped with, and I will continue to help no matter what they say. I have purchased at great expense an extensive camera system with cameras outside, and I pay $25 every time somebody says there was a problem. I want a copy of a disc. I had a guy 2 weeks ago drive down the street, sideswipe a neighbor's car, and take off. The neighbor came to me. I was able to get for $25 a disc of the car, and they got the guy. I paid for that disc. I had one of my neighbors 3 houses down the street. 2 gentlemen, don't know if they were from my bar or not, got into a skirmish, and the one guy fell against his car. Did several $100 damage to the body. I paid for the gentleman's deductible because I care about my neighborhood. I also have, just to let you know, I have a verbal offer in to the people across the street that Miss Geerling, building she lives in, as well as the blighted property next to hers, to purchase those properties, and I'd like to rehab those and help the neighborhood as well. I want you to know I have never been contacted by Ms. Geerling. She has never once called me and asked if she could talk to me. When I started noticing the negative things, the social media terrorism, as I call it, that she's doing on social media, I had 3 friends. I don't do social media. I had 3 friends get on the Facebook, contact her, and ask her if she'd like to have a meeting and we could work together. I never got a response. I had a well-known politician contact her and say, please, sit down with Bruce and let's have a chat. Let's see if we can do something. Again, no response. We have doctors, lawyers, politicians, and businessmen as regulars in our bar. They're there from lunch to closing. If we were a nuisance bar, I don't think they would be there. Ms. Geerling speaks derogatorily about the people in my neighborhood. She speaks derogatorily about the people from Erie. She speaks derogatorily about my customers. Ms. Geerling appears to be more interested in her social activism resume than actually helping the people of our neighborhoods. One thing I have noticed is that Mrs. Geerling seems to have a lot of energy. And I sincerely hope that if she moves to Vermont, that she would talk to the next target of her social media attacks before she goes off and tries to ruin their business and take food out of the mouths of their children. I would also ask Ms. Geerling that whoever she leaves in charge of this social media attack on my establishment, please come and see me and talk to me so I can work with you so we can make the neighborhood a better place. We can't do it all ourselves. We need some help. Thank you for your time, ladies and gentlemen. God bless.
Are there any more citizens to be heard?
Good evening, Council. My name is McDonald. My property is 19th and Reed. I want to talk to you about that bond grant money. I'm seeing in the paper here, you allowed so much for this center and so much for that center. Those centers haven't had no work done on them in at least 20 years. It's been longer than that. What you got to do to get some work done to those centers? Because they are deteriorating. You go down here on this center down here on the west side. It needs some work bad. It really needs some work bad. Even the center up there on 18th and Holland. Haven't been no work done on any of those centers. I see you give them, where did this money come from anyway that you're giving them these three centers? It ain't enough. It ain't enough. It's not enough. I see the housing authority got $350,000. That should go a long ways. Really. That really should go a long ways. But you need much more than that for those centers. If you don't do something about them soon, they're going to be falling down. The roof's going to be leaking. They haven't even had roofs put on them in all that time. And that roofing don't last for so long. I wish you would consider those centers. They gave the what's that on 6th and Parade there. It's not a center. But anyway, they sold it. That should have been put up for the people on the Lower East Side. And they tore that other center down there on 3rd, I think. No, 4th. They tore that down. The peoples on the Lower East Side need somewhere to go too. Those kids need somewhere to go. I didn't come up here to just blow hot air. I want you to listen to me. You wonder how come this happened and that happened. There's a reason for everything. There's a reason for everything. I was thinking about those kids is being shot and all of that. How do you expect kids to learn when they're sitting up there thinking about somebody going to come in and kill them? They can't learn too good that way. You should have, I know this is not the place to be talking about it, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. They should have metal detectors, and then they should have more security. I have a grandgirl going up to that old tech up there. There's so many kids up there, the kids are stumbling over each other. There's too many kids up there. When you get too many kids somewhere, you're going to have a problem. And you've had problems up there. They keep it up under the rug, but they have problems up there. And I thank you for your time.
Are there any more citizens to be heard? Are there any more citizens to be heard? Last call for citizens to be heard. That takes us into our ordinances.
Ordinances for final passage. Council file number 15631, official ordinance number 22-2018, and ordinance vacating the public right-of-way known as Federal Avenue and approving the agreement between the City of Erie and Erie Zoological Society to transfer the right-of-way to the Erie Zoological Society for the greater public good.
Madam President?
Yes.
I just wanted to let the community know that Federal Avenue is what we call a paper street. It was never built, and it's just land that the city owns. And by giving it to the Erie Zoological Society, it will allow them to, it will allow them to expand, and make our zoo a better place. We have no intention of building a street there. The land on either side is not, it's not possible to build homes, and so this is a good thing for not only it's taking unused land and making it usable for the Erie Zoo.
All right, by Ms. Allen, second by Mr. Kwiatkowski, that council file ordinance bill 15631, excuse me, and now known as official file ordinance number 22/2018 be finally passed by the city council. Ms. Allen, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Mursky, Mrs. Schaaf, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mrs. Arrington. City council passed official file ordinance number 22/2018 finally by yeas 7, nays 0. Council File 15632, official ordinance number 23/2018, an ordinance appropriating the sum of $251,291 from unappropriated and anticipated revenue to be received from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development for the ESG 18 projects. By Mr. Mursky, second by Mr. Kwiatkowski, the Council File ordinance bill number 15632, now known as official file ordinance number 23/2018 be finally passed by the City Council. Ms. Allen, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Mursky, Mrs. Schaaf, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mrs. Arrington. City Council passed official file ordinance number 23/2018 finally by yeas 7, nays 0. Council File 15633, ordinance number 24/2018, an ordinance appropriating the sum of $904,894 from unappropriated and anticipated revenue to be received from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development for the Home M18 projects. By Mr. Mursky, second by Mr. Kwiatkowski, the Council File ordinance bill number 15633, and now known as official file ordinance number 24/2018 be finally passed by the City Council. Ms. Allen, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Mursky, Mrs. Schaaf, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mrs. Arrington. City Council passed official file ordinance number 24/2018 finally by yeas 7, nays 0. Council File 15634, official ordinance number 25/2018, an ordinance appropriating the sum of $3,086,611 from unappropriated and anticipated revenue to be received from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development and $9,729.38 program income for a total of $3,096,340.38 for the Community Development Block Grant 18 projects. By Mr. Mursky, second by Mr. Kwiatkowski, the Council File Bill ordinance bill number 15632, 34, and now known as official file ordinance number 25/2018 be finally passed by the City Council. Ms. Allen, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Mursky, Mrs. Schaaf, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mrs. Arrington. City Council passed official file ordinance number 25/2014 finally by yeas 7, nays 0. Ordinances for first reading. Council File 15635, an ordinance appropriating the sum of $246,976 from unappropriated and anticipated revenue and providing for the expenditure thereof for the Drug and Alcohol Prevention Grant. By Mr. Winarski, second by Mr. Witherspoon, that Council File ordinance number 15635, having been read, is hereby adopted on first reading by the City Council. Ms. Allen, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Mursky, Mrs. Schaaf, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mrs. Arrington. City Council read and adopt council ordinance file number 15635 by yeas 7, nays 0 on first reading. Council file 15636, an ordinance appropriating the sum of $500,000 from unappropriated and anticipated revenue to provide for the expenditure thereof for the construction phase of the City of Erie Milling and Asphalt Resurfacing Federal Aid Local Routes PennDOT Transportation Alternatives Program Grant Agreement. By Mr. Witherspoon, second by Ms. Schaaf, that council file ordinance number 15636, having been read, is hereby adopted on first reading by the City Council. Ms. Allen, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Mursky, Ms. Schaaf, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mrs. Arrington. City Council read and adopt council file ordinance number 15636 by yeas 7, nays 0 on first reading. Council file 15637, an ordinance appropriating the sum of $133,329 from unappropriated and anticipated revenue and providing for the expenditure thereof for the 2018 Insurance Fraud Prevention Authority. By Mr. Winarski, second by Mr. Witherspoon, the council file ordinance 15637, having been read, is hereby adopted on first reading by the City Council. Ms. Allen, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Mursky, Mrs. Schaaf, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mrs. Arrington. City Council read and adopt council file ordinance number 15637 by yeas 7, nays 0 on first reading. Your sponsor in this, I think, has this. That'll take us into new business. Take it with you. I had pizza for supper.
You can have mine.
Madam President,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to move the balance of the agenda.
All right.
I'll second that, Madam President.
Okay. Are there any separations?
Mr. President, number 1 under contracts.
And number 11 under new business.
Number 2 under new business, Madam President.
Is there anything else?
Okay, then moving the balance of the agenda. Ms. Allen, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Mursky, Ms. Schaaf, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mrs. Arrington. By Ms. Allen, second by Mr. Winarski. Resolved by the Council of the City of Erie that the proper city officials are hereby authorized to execute an easement agreement between the City of Erie and Erie Indemnity Company and Erie Insurance Exchange, collectively referred to as Erie Insurance, for the construction of a pedestrian bridge across above and across East 6th Street from Erie Insurance to Perry Square Building, and for a pedestrian bridge above and across East 7th Street to the Technical Learning Center building, collectively referred to as exchange parcels. Discussion?
Madam President?
Yes.
I'd like to defer discussion to Attorney Betza, as this was on our agenda at our last meeting, and we pulled it for some technical or legal issues, and we just would go from the legal standpoint and let Mr. Betza explain why it's been put back on and how those were met. Thank you.
Certainly. At the time of the last council meeting, there had been a proposal from Erie Insurance to have two sky walkways connecting their buildings, really from 6th all the way up to, it would take you almost across 6th and across 7th Street. The easement was prepared and presented, and council had it at the last meeting, but the legal description of the easement was not prepared, and it had been done. It needed to be done by surveyors. You can't say roughly across 6th and roughly across 7th. Since the last council meeting, we have received the legal description. It has been surveyed. We have the exact amounts. I've taken a look at it. I have no objection to the legal description. We're not losing anything. The walkways would be above. It's simply now proper to be before council for approval if you deem it appropriate.
Thank you, Attorney Betza. The only other thing I would want to add is the last thing this council wants to be, myself or even the administration, is to be a roadblock for any development that is being done in the city of Erie. But we still got to do it in a legal manner and in a professional manner to make sure we're doing it for the good of the city. Thank you.
Mr. President?
Yes.
I'd like to make a suggestion. I'm going to vote for this because I have been a proponent of Erie Insurance. But a message to the administration. Please, when you do these bridges, because they're both on very critical east-west streets, try to put some warning signs on Parade Street and other connecting streets that those streets are closed. It's going to cause a lot of congestion like it did when they had the cranes on 7th Street. 7th Street is a major artery into the city for a lot of us. 6th Street will be too. If you can put a sign on Parade Street warning that 6th and 7th are closed, or from other streets on the other side, from the other direction, just so people have an idea we don't have a lot of log jam where we don't need it. A little warning and a little PR ahead of time, like they do in other cities, would help. Thank you.
All right, roll call. Ms. Allen, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Mursky, Mrs. Schaaf, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mrs. Arrington. This will adopt 7-0. By Mr. Mursky, second by Mr. Kwiatkowski, resolved by the Council of the City of Erie that the mayor and other appropriate city officials are hereby authorized to execute the necessary agreements with subrecipients to carry out the Community Development Block Grant 18 projects. Do you want me to read the figures?
No, that's okay. Madam President?
Yes.
I wanted to commend the Department of Economic Development, Community Development for the process. Everything, I've heard no complaints from the social service agencies. I do have a challenge, though, to the social service agencies because they apply for this funding. And we have $319,500 in HR costs for jobs. $319,000, which isn't going to programming, it's going to employment for workers at these centers. And only $43,000, $43,912 going into programming for young people for summer programming. I challenge our centers to flip that for next year, and I understand, or at least put the money that you were going to put into salaries that you're now getting money from CDBG and put that into the kids so that the lion's share of this money is going to people, not to workers at your employment for HR and costs. I think that I don't think that's, and it's not a knock on the administration at all. They just take the applications that come in and then vet the process, and this is how it's been done, status quo, for years. So I'm not criticizing the administration, but we need to change the paradigm. If we're going to change poverty in this community, we can't keep doing business as usual and just paying for HR out of CDBG money. We have to make sure that that money's going to outcome-based programs for our community. I will vote for this, though, because it did follow the process, and I've heard no complaints about it.
Are there any more questions?
Roll call. Ms. Allen, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Mursky, Mrs. Schaaf, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mrs. Arrington. This resolution will adopt 7-0. By Mr. Witherspoon, seconded by Ms. Schaaf. Resolved by the Council of the City of Erie that the contract for the City of Erie milling and asphalt resurfacing, federal aid local routes, PennDOT transportation alternative program, federal aid reimbursement grant agreement be awarded to Mayer Brothers Construction Company, 1902 Cherry Street, Erie, they being the lowest of 3 bids in the sum of $513,822.53, and the proper city officials be and they are hereby authorized and directed to sign said contract on behalf of the City of Erie. Discussion?
Mrs. President, I just want to separate this for a vote, that's all.
Okay.
All right, roll call. Ms. Allen, Mr. Kwiatkowski,
No.
Mr. Mursky, Mrs. Schaaf, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mrs. Arrington. And this will adopt 6-1. That will take us to committee and reports, Madam President.
Okay, we're going to start with Jim today.
Ooh. Oh.
Changing it up.
I'll definitely be brief. Good evening, everybody. Once again, I do not have any committee reports, as both of my committee meetings are this coming week. Naturally, EMTA is in some interesting predicaments with the school district, whether that's Advantage Erie School it's still part of our community, part of our tax dollars to know what is exactly going to happen there with school busing this coming year. I know Wednesday we have the meeting with the Port Authority, and naturally it's hitting right now their very busy season, and we'll see how that meeting goes and report at our next meeting. Thank you.
Kathy?
Thank you, Madam President. I was fortunate enough to go on a vacation with my husband. We spent 3 days in Portland, Maine, and 3 days in Bath, Maine, and I made it like a business pleasure trip. I spoke to a lot of people. I took a lot of pictures and found similarities and differences between the cities and the City of Erie. And they had forts there, and I would still like to see Michael Furman's idea of the forts of Presque Isle be on the east side. I would love to see that come into fruition. There were lots of ice cream shops there, and coffee shops, and yogas, and vintage stores, and restaurants and bars, but they still had their homeless people and people waiting to get some type of soup kitchen, shelter meals, and things like that too. So I got to witness all that. Went to World Refugee Day at the Erie Art Museum, and Liz was there, and on Wednesdays, and the mayor was there too, I think, yes. And they had a lovely presentation of song and dance and music at the Art Museum today, and for World Refugee Day. Amira Masala is Saturday, July 14th at Perry Square, from 11 o'clock to 5 o'clock, and there's going to be a short parade from 4th and State to Perry Square on that day, and it's a family-friendly, multicultural event, so I hope to see a lot of people at that event. Liz and I went to the Planning Commission meeting, and discussion was held about the LED message boards, and they're talking about and researching what they can on the LED lighting, and they seem to be on board with what we presented. The Water Authority is having their water meeting tomorrow, and I will be in attendance there, God willing. There was a water main break in my neighborhood yesterday on 43rd and Kohler, and the street was shut down today as well. So here I'm thinking water main breaks are just a winter thing, but no. Our infrastructure does need work and replacement, so they're always busy all year round. The LGBTQ committee, they're having Wednesday, June 27th is National HIV Testing Day, and there's a http://hltsad.org/site, but I believe there is free testing. I was going to bring that and I forgot. I apologize. I am looking to celebrate the lights on the lake. Thank you, Mayor Schember, for getting that on board. That's very special to my family. For many, many years, we went up to Mercyhurst College and celebrated that with our family. That was a tradition, so I'm looking forward to celebrating that with my family. And I love that it's summertime because you can go to a musical event almost every day of the week for free in Erie, Pennsylvania. So I'm very thankful for summertime, one of my favorite times of the year. So I continue to be where I'm needed and help where I'm needed, and I'm very thankful to the City of Erie for allowing me to be up here. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, I attended the police pension meeting, and the fund is doing very well. It's proceeding, meeting its obligations and increasing in value slowly, even with the sluggish market. So it's doing rather well. I met with the parking authority, and there's good news on that front that they'll be rolling out the test pretty shortly in front of the courthouse. And they're in the process now of finalizing the various contracts after they go through them and meet with the criteria that they need to have them done. It's going to incorporate what they would call readers in the hands of the attendants. They will not be giving out paper tickets any longer. They'll be able to correlate tickets and delinquencies a lot better. They're going to integrate our plan with their records, plus the physical aspects, the parking meters and the kiosks. That should be rolled out. I know a lot of people, there were comments made in the newspaper about how come it took so long. Well, anything this that takes the kind of work and intel into this, and it needs the support administration, which I'm glad to say we did. And even though a couple of things were lagging for a while, Attorney Betts has taken them out of the dark hole of Calcutta and got them forward. And I think things are going to move a lot better now. And the plan will proceed. And I think the new meters would be beneficial to the area. Will give especially the young people who are so good at the new intel, and our meters will be, as I understand it, we'll be able to take phone apps and credit cards and everything. So that'll be good news. And just two observations. Once again, Parade Street, I'm still disappointed. We need to take it serious. I was talking with Mr. McDonald. We don't need semis parked in front of East Erie Turners on weekends and holidays. We don't need cars blocking the sidewalks. We don't need physical barricades, which exist right now to block wheelchair access or even regular people on foot. It looks bad. It looks bad for the city. It's a major artery that people come in, and it's time we start ticketing them or start laying the law down. We do not allow parking on the right-of-way. Why it's still there, I don't know. But you can start at 26th Street and head north. Before you get to 18th, you'll see quite a bit of it. Most of it's on the east side. It's time to clean that up. There's one place that has unsightly tires, and at a time when we're talking about the mosquitoes during the summer and water being stored in tires, we need to look at that too. I am done talking. The next step I take is going to be I'm going to start taking the media down there. I'm going to call the health department. I'm going to call Voices of Independence, whatever it takes. But it's time to clear up Parade Street. That's just one street. Freda brings up others, and various people have brought up others. It's time we start cleaning up the city one step at a time. Which brings me to my last observation. I left town Saturday, and I'm not a person who reads the paper all the time. I didn't see any news articles on it, but to my surprise, State Street was closed for the Soapbox Derby. Now, judging by the number of people who are dodging on 38th Street, trying to change their lanes because they couldn't turn north, I called the streets department. It would be nice if whoever closes down these streets would start thinking about the approach to these streets, so that when you have a right-hand turn lane on East 38th and you're going to head north and all of a sudden you turn the corner and there's a barricade, too late for you to do anything. So what do? You do what most people do. You try to cut somebody off. I almost lost the front end of my car, so I don't appreciate that. So please, there's enough people upstairs that we pay good salaries to do the thinking. They need to think about when they close down a street, any street, start thinking about the effect on the streets around it. Other towns do it. I hate to say that, but that's my bugaboo. Please. That was a special event. That's not, they had plenty of time to think about it. Just like when we close it down for Celebrate Erie, try to think of what the effect is on various roads. Thank you.
Mel?
Thank you, Madam President. I'm very happy to announce that the Basketball League will begin Monday the 25th on 19th, East 19th Street, and Bayview will start July 5th. We have more kids than we have coaches. So this is a plea to men and women. We need your help. We have 282 young men. We have 85 young ladies. And this does not count the numbers we have at Bayview. They still coming in. Right now we have coaches who are coaching a team in every division. So they're there 5 days a week, volunteering their time, and we just need some more help. We want to thank, again, the businesses that are participating, and of course the administration. And I want the folks to know that it may be called Spoons League only because I started it 28 years ago. And it is, in fact, a city recreation program. And with that idea and that concept, that's why we went to the Bayfront last year, and it was successful. And we also have a bitty basketball camp for 5, 6, 7, 8-year-olds. And that's held at Roger Young Park. And in the future, we hope to expand the league to the Buffalo Road area. So the city is, in fact, putting together and rebuilding a recreation program. And we just happen to start with basketball. The gentleman there, past president 2 times, Mr. Curtis Jones, he was there. He played the first year. He lived 20 steps from the court, and his whole entire family, his sisters, they played. To you, Mayor, the Curtis cheated a lot. But he told me the court was in his backyard and I didn't live there, and he was right. Plus he had 13 siblings to help him out, so I didn't say nothing. But the league is kicking off on Monday the 25th, and we invite everyone in the city to come by. We play Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, the boys, Tuesday and Thursday, the girls. And on January 5th, Tuesday and Thursdays at Bayfront. Right down there, we just have the boys right now, and it will expand. But we're pleased. The numbers are there. And when we start at 5:15 and end about 9:30, that means we have our kids right there. Bad word, but we have some control over what happens there. We have police security. We never had to use them, but it's nice to see their presence there. Madam Chairman, one last note. Before we end our session tonight, I would really like to have past President Curtis Jones say something to us. Thank you.
I agree. Liz?
You didn't put me to sleep. Okay, I have a couple of things to report. At the last city council meeting, there was a citizen who talked about the litter downtown. So Kathy Schaaf and I got together and we met with, actually this is a friend and former colleague of mine, Anna McCartney, who is a communications specialist for Pennsylvania Sea Grant. And I don't know if you saw the story in the paper. This was June 16th. There's an exhibit at Trek about plastic pollution. So looking at that story, we sort of are thinking that it's good to address litter, but also we should be thinking about what the source of that litter is. So I think Kathy and I are going to be doing something. We want to talk to the administration about this too, so we're not just like barreling out there and doing this. But Anna suggested that we could use the checklist that they use in the spring for the Keep America Beautiful cleanup, and also in September for the International Coastal Cleanup, and maybe do like some mini cleanups on, in different areas, and we can actually catalog what kind of stuff we're picking up. And we know that a lot of it is going to be plastic. It's going to be plastic bags. There are some downtown businesses that are now getting involved with the Skip the Straw campaign so that you don't have a lot of plastic blowing around. I kind of got hooked on this when I found out that my granddaughter in Maryland, who just turned 10, was part of a Skip the Straw Day at her school, and they got a proclamation from the county commissioners there. So I think that some good things are going to be happening, not just on making sure that Erie stays clean or gets cleaner, but also that we address some of the sources. I've been in contact, but I haven't heard back yet from the Downtown Erie Partnership. I see that they have a little vehicle that's going around making sure downtown is clean, and I think that part of the grant they got from Community Foundation had something to do with keeping downtown clean, but I haven't had a chance to read the newspaper today to find out about that. So anyhow, we're moving forward on trying to keep Erie clean, and if anybody wants to help us with that process, let us know. I went to the Sewer Authority meeting yesterday, and I also have to refer, there was also a story in the paper about the proposed $70 million capital improvement plan. So it's a really big document. I've only read part of it so far, but Basil Ronzitti, who is the director of the wastewater treatment plant, and he's going to take me on a tour of the sewer plant. I think he said it's like 23 acres, and sewage doesn't sound like a really, maybe exciting topic. But ever since I went to a meeting a couple of months ago about the Great Lakes and clean water, it really made me see the the relationship between the water that we take in, so we have clean drinking water, and the water that comes out that we put back into the ecosystem. It's really important to make sure that we retain that as a resource. If you saw, there was also a story in the paper recently about Lake Erie, our part of Lake Erie being named the top fishery in Pennsylvania. So we have to make sure that we have a clean lake. So I'm doing my due diligence to learn everything I possibly can about the sewer, about how the wastewater treatment plant works. I wanted to commend the administration for a couple of things. One is Nikan Asteri Carpenter was named one of the top in the Erie Reader today, so the mayor had a really good pick in picking Nikan as the special assistant who's reaching out to refugees and new Americans, and she is just wrapping up being at a conference to find out how to make sure Erie's a welcoming city. The other thing is, the guy who's the official scorer at the Seawolves, I guess, I'm sure Curtis knows this, and everybody, all of my colleagues already know, when you're on city council, you get collared by people who say, hey, I have a problem, can you help me with this? And so the guy who's the scorer said he had a friend who had a problem on his street, I think it was with a pothole, and he had called somebody, didn't know what to do, so I luckily now have Moss Sala's phone number in my phone, so I said, call this number. So then I checked back. Did you tell your friend to call? No, not yet. Well, today he called. He called this morning, and he had, immediately got in touch with Moss, and I think it was an hour later he already had a response. So it was like, good backup, that to know that citizens are being responded to here. Another thing, the food truck thing. Opening up, having Perry Square with all the food trucks this week leading up to the Food Truck Festival is really cool. And also, you can see that there's good stuff going on downtown. Somebody had mentioned, Lucky's kind of as a bad thing, but I just found out that Lucky's, that Joe's Brooklyn Bagels is going to be coming downtown. There was a sign in the window, so good stuff is coming downtown. And Freda will get some kind of committee together, I hope, at some point to look at the appointment process. I think with the County Planning Commission, I think that's more a county thing, the way they did that. But certainly at some point we can look at that and look at, what kind of qualifications you have for appointments to authorities. That's it.
Thank you, Madam President. Just a few things to report. As you saw in today's meeting, there was a lot of activity in economic development. We also transferred property to the zoo. Erie Events does meet tomorrow at 3:30 down at the Convention Center. I'll be attending that meeting. I also attended the Poor People's March in downtown Erie, and just calling to mind the 50th anniversary of Dr. Martin Luther King's Poor People's Movement. And, we use poor often in society today as a pejorative term, but to make sure that while we have all these great things happening in the city, and I think the mayor's done a good job with this, making sure that we include everybody and try to lift up everybody. It was, listening to some of the speakers and some of the people that were talking, and there's a lot of energy in this community, and hopefully we can turn that energy into action. I also attended the Afternoon for Equality for the Greater Erie Alliance for Equality, and we want to thank the mayor for flying the pride flag for them this month for their Pride Week, which is next week. Also, World Refugee Day was today. I want to remind everybody that refugees are legal immigrants to this country through the asylum process, and our refugees have not only kept our population up, they've also enriched our community, both in culture and in food and in diversity. I taught at East High for many years, where 25% of our population was foreign born, many of whom were refugees that came to this country. They're now college-age kids, and they're attending colleges and universities, and they're gainfully employed in the community. They're very hard workers, and I think that it's a strength for us to have them in our community, and we celebrate World Refugee Day today. And just a couple other things. Juneteenth was this week, where we celebrated the emancipation of slaves in this country, and I wanted to thank Angela McNair and her committee who put on that Juneteenth celebration at the Martin Luther King Center. I was not able to attend, but I did donate to their prizes to raffle off for the kids. It's always good when we have celebrations of our diversity. And finally, Mayor, just to piggyback off of what Kaz said, I did get a call about semis being parked between Pine Avenue and 38th Street on Ash. They're parking behind Dugan's Appliance Store, and they're there for like 3-4 days at a time. I think what's happening is these people who own their own rigs, they have nowhere to park them. We have so many vacant lots in this city. It would be nice if some entrepreneur who owned one of those, offered to be a parking lot for these semis. We have a lot of vacant property, especially, as I was campaigning, you see former industrial sites that are just, the parking lots are sitting empty that we could use for that. And also that street used to be marked no semis except for local deliveries. And what's happening is a lot of the semis don't want to go up to Pine Avenue and then cut across and make the turn there, so they're just cutting across Ash. That sign isn't there anymore. I don't know. I mean, it's been down for a couple of years. If we could check with engineering or the traffic engineer and see that if it was taken down because it used to be a tar and chip road and now it's paved, and maybe that was the reason, or if it just fell down or got old and we didn't replace it. But those neighbors were saying a lot of semis are cutting through there now, and it's changed the makeup of the traffic in that neighborhood. So that's on Ash Street between Pine Avenue and 38th Street. And that's all I have to report. I just wanted, we weren't here for Father's Day. I want to wish all the fathers out there a happy Father's Day.
Okay,
and I take that back. One more thing we didn't tell everybody yet. Our July 4th meeting has been canceled per resolution here because it is a holiday. Our meeting falls on the holiday. We're not coming in. So, but we will see you at the next meeting with a full agenda. So I wanted to just wish everybody a happy Independence Day too, and thank the administration and Mercyhurst University for bringing fireworks back to the community.
I have no report. Teresa? Mayor?
Just a few things. Our new website was mentioned. That's a beta or a kind of a test website, so take a look at it, and we welcome input on that. I'm going to a meeting on the opportunity zones. I found out through Bruce Katz was going on. It's a meeting of mayors in Las Vegas on Monday and Tuesday. So I won't be in. I'll be at this learning about how we can take advantage of this opportunity we have with the opportunity zones. At the August 1st meeting, I'll be here with Paul Lichtenwalder to give you a 6-month review of the budget in terms of where things stand with that. The Strengthening Police Community Partnerships Group, the SPCP as they're referred to, has been meeting regularly. We had another good meeting today, and we're really hoping to make good moves forward in improving police-community relationships. The Innovation District pilot, of their Secure Smart City, which will go from Perry Square to 10th Street on State, is moving forward. I had a meeting with them this last week, and there's some issues they're working through, but they're still pretty confident that should be going by August, the pilot, to see how that works. LERTA, we're still working on LERTA. You voted on that once, and then we pulled it because I didn't want to do anything before the school district and the county were totally ready there. The county is ready. The school district is still trying to figure out financially what they can do, and we're working to try to help them with that. But I'm hoping in a meeting or two at the most, we'll have some resolution on that and be able to move forward. Brian Polito and his group are really working hard on it. The Police Athletic League will be July 23rd to 27th. That's the one-week program over at Gannon. If you ever want to stop over and see what's going on, they meet at 9 o'clock at Piper Burley School and bus the kids over to Gannon, and the program goes till about 2 each day, and they're working mostly in the gym on different athletic activities with the kids. They had 70 kids last year, the first year of this program. This year they think they'll have about 120, so it is really growing. I want to remind you, too, about every Thursday at 10 a.m. we have a weekly press conference, and you're welcome to attend that. It's also streamed live. I'm not an expert on that kind of thing, but they tell me it's very easy to get now if you want to watch it remotely. We've got 5 topics we'll be talking about this week, just to give you an idea. First is a new micro grant program that Chris Groner has put together. He'll be kind of describing that and when businesses can apply for that. The summer rec program, we'll be talking about that, describing it. We'll be explaining the city's fireworks ordinance. We've started to get the complaints from people in neighborhoods that they're hearing fireworks late at night and too close to houses and that sort of thing. So we'll be telling people what they should and shouldn't be doing related to that. Nika Nastari Carpenter, I think someone mentioned, has been in Louisville, Kentucky the first 3 days of this week. She may be home by now or close to being home. She'll be into work tomorrow. She's attended a conference on welcoming immigrants and refugees to this country, and every time we've talked to her on the phone or texted with her, she's really excited about what she's learning, and she's going to speak a little bit at the press conference about her experience there. I don't know that we're going to be ready with like specific actions we're going to take, but we want her to give an idea of what happened. I will also be talking about opportunity zones. That'll be a conference I'll be going to next week. By the way, that conference is with mayors from around the country. It's organized by the mayor of Los Angeles, actually, and the mayor of a couple of cities, and I'm blanking on names now, but a couple of cities around Erie size will be there, and I'm looking forward to being able to network and get to know them. So I'll be gone Monday and Tuesday next week at that. The large item pickup program, I think you've all heard about that. It seems to be going well so far, and this could eliminate the problems we always have in April when all the junk is out, since people can call 72 hours before their regular scheduled pickup date and schedule up to 3 large items and get rid of them rather than store them and wait till April to come around. This will also make it much easier for us to enforce violators of putting things out they shouldn't or putting things out without it being scheduled. And we're still working on hopefully getting close to finishing up the ordinance that will allow quality of life ticketing, and you'll be hearing more about that soon as well. Fireworks, a couple of you mentioned that July 3rd is the fireworks, and I'm excited about that, and hopefully everyone will enjoy that. And thanks for mentioning the food truck pilot also. That's brought a lot of people, seems like, downtown into the park, as well as having the food trucks there on State. We are playing music. We had actually live entertainment yesterday. This was a volunteer. We'll have live entertainment again on Friday. It's a 3-piece drum band, from what I understand, and I can't tell you the national origin, but I believe it's kind of an ethnic thing. The other days we're just piping music in so that people have music to listen to as they eat their lunch. And it's really a neat feeling there. At least the times I've been in there, there seems to be a lot of good spirit, and it seems like a really good thing. So thank you very much.
All right. Mr. Betts?
I have nothing.
Okay. Mr. Jones?
Very quickly, I know we're all ready to go home as I am. Madam President, Mr. Mayor, all of council, controller, Ms. Rose, solicitor. It's my honor to be kind of home again. Spent 12 years of Wednesday nights in this room with many of you, and over this, last, again, 12 years. And it's great to be here. It's great to see the city of Erie moving forward with our new administration, new council members and elected officials, as well as previously elected officials who are continuing to serve with the right heart. So I'm just honored to kind of be in the club, in the, I can't say fraternity because it has a male connotation, but in the club of those who have decided to find ways to serve and to make our city better. I would say I'm here with a young man who is interested in government and serving this area, serving the community, fresh out of high school and is going to school in the fall at Mercyhurst University. I'll let him kind of say his name in a moment. But I'm here just kind of continuing to give back. And so again, it's my honor to be here, be home, and anything that I can do from my position on this side of the desk, it'd be my honor to do that and to continue to serve in whatever capacity you all think I could add some value. And finally, something that Mr. Mirsky said. I'm not going to do my 5 minutes, so you have to bust it. I don't think. I didn't tell you. Finally, Erie, I believe this wholeheartedly. This is one of the best places in the world to live. For so many reasons. And sometimes we don't see our own greatness because we're so used to it. I was down in the peninsula the other day, and people live on the water here. Like, people have water houses, and people are living in ways that the average Erie citizen would have no idea, and they're really enjoying life. And others are people, I see people all the time that are here from Pittsburgh, here from all over the area, all summer long, and are excited about what we take for granted. So I just want to just kind of say that, let's continue to promote Erie. Let's continue to promote the beauty of our community, the winter and the summer and everything in between. And, poor in pocket is one thing. We can work on that. But when you're poor in spirit, it doesn't really matter what's in your pocket. And so we need to increase the level of love for one another, love for ourselves, and have a not so poor in spirit mentality in our community. And we can do that by just, say hi to somebody. Be gracious. Offer unto them what you would love to make your day better. And I think that will make our community better, and we'll see who we are in a more clear way. So, again, my honor to be here. I won't pass the offering basket around as I used to do. But again, I have great love and respect for all of you, and thank you for continuing to serve in whatever capacities you are doing behind the desk and on this side of the desk. And if you give a moment, yield the rest of my time, if there's any, to this young man who's interning with me.
Hi, I'm Blake Johnson. Those of you that don't know me, it's been a privilege to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. And that adjourns our meeting.
Council adjourns at 9:07. Ms. Arrington, Ms. Allen, Mr. Potowski, Mr. Mursky, Mr. Schaaf, Mr. Winarski, Mr.